There's like a million things to say in that little 2-minute clip. So let's break it down. The first thing, we're going to go through this, right? But in general, here's what happened. They destroy his property. Imagine if he had destroyed their property. What do you think the crowd's reaction would have been? So they destroy his property. They physically touch him to move him, surround him, move him, continue to act like their hands are out while they're touching his body, forcing him back. What do you think would happen if he did that to them? But then, when they destroy his sign, they immediately go, he has a weapon. Because even then, they are perpetual victims. That statement that they so quickly go to, he has a weapon, that says everything you need to know about them. Everything. They understand their power comes from being a victim. And so as soon as they could make him look like the aggressor, oh, he's just standing there holding a stick, that's a weapon. When clearly it was a sign that was on a stick, which is an unusual in a protest. Immediately they go to, he's a threat. He's a threat. And they're laughing about it because they know that's their source of strength. They know it. So they go right to that. And then the repent motherfucker. All of this was over a comedian telling jokes. Kudos to that guy, by the way. Jokes are good, I agree. They don't like jokes. This is the humorless future if the left maintains cultural power, the direction we're going. This is it. Being bullied by perpetual victims. Now let's go through it and I'll stop and we'll discuss play by play. Now the guy's kind of singing. I think he's hamming it up. He's being jokey. Even at the end where he's going, my stick, my sign. He's joking. He's hamming it up. Which is funny because he's there in support of comedian in the first place. So good for him for showing up and doing this, but he's kind of joking around while he's doing it. So you can see they grab his sign. Now that's destruction of property. If you would go up to a Joe Biden rally and rip their sign down, what do you think would happen? If he would have ripped down a trans activist sign, what do you think would have happened? But it's okay. Now, I'm not saying that people deserve to go to prison or anything, but they're definitely the aggressors here.
Why are you breaking my sign?
Look at how, do you see, this is something you see constantly at these sort of things. The people that claim to be the victims and the noble people, see how someone grabs his property, they're not interjecting. Instead, what they're doing is intervening. They're trying to stop him from being able to obtain his property back. So you see particularly this woman that's going to be like this the whole time. Notice how she's moving in right away. She's pushing her body against him. And what will happen if he would push back and say, stop touching me? I've seen this a million times. They'll start screaming, why are you touching me? Get out of my space, get out of my space. They keep their hands out and then physically press against you and try to move you back, claiming that you're egressing on their space. That's what their claim is. So notice that it's not just one person destroying the sign. It is a litany of people there that are intentionally stopping this person from protecting his property.
Why is he breaking my sign? Don't have free speech.
Why is he breaking my sign? And I believe this woman with the mask says, because you're awful. It's okay to destroy your property if you're awful. This makes sense. This is why they're all about, they could destroy statues, they could take your MAGA hat, they could destroy Trump signs, they could do any of that. But if you deface a George Floyd statue, if you rip down a Biden sign, that would be a hate crime. If you deface a Black Lives Matter sign, that's a hate crime. If you would rip a trans sign, that's a hate crime. But they could destroy your stuff because their rules don't apply to themselves, because you're awful. So it's okay for them to be violent. It's okay for them to destroy your stuff because you're awful. So it's okay. That's how they truly believe.
Free speech rights is all of you. Oh, look, there's such a violence. He's got a weapon.
Now look, the guy right here, you see him in the blue shirt that's destroying the sign. He's the one who yells, he's got a weapon. Watch.
He's got a weapon. He's got.
You see that? So he not only destroys the sign, but then immediately tries to get the mob to push this guy out or to get authorities to remove this person by claiming he has a weapon. If you didn't see that this sign was just destroyed by the very guy claiming that he has a weapon, you may think, oh, he did why would you bring a big stick? That's clearly just a weapon. That's maybe what you would think. So you can see how unethical these people are. In addition to destroying someone's property, now they're just blatantly lying. If they're willing to blatantly lie about this, you don't think they're willing to blatantly lie about being victims in other ways? The same guy that destroys the sign then immediately says he's got a weapon.
He's got a weapon!
Now this guy starts chanting it too because he finds it funny. But you see other people. Look at this guy. Man, if there was ever a reason to end masks in public, it would be so that we could know who this guy was, right? What a scumbag. What a weasel. Look at his little point there. He's got a weapon. He's got a weapon there. He's got a weapon. Do you see how even his body language infers that he's somehow a victim? How he's like shrunken up and pointed like that? Why would you do that? Because victimhood is the ultimate power. That's why. These people obtain more power the meeker they look. They act as the aggressors. I've talked about this all the time. If you want an analogy, I've seen this as someone who was a drunk for a good portion of my life once I turned 21. Go to a bar. If you spend enough time, at least in rural Pennsylvania, in a bar, you'll see this situation. Some night you'll see some drunk lady or a drunk small guy start with a bigger, more imposing guy. So let's just say the lady version. And she'll get up and she'll be like, F you, and poking him in the stomach and poking him in the stomach. She might spit on him. She might throw a drink on him. She might slap him in the face. And she'll keep going and going and going and going. Or like I said, it could be a smaller guy doing this. And eventually, the bigger guy loses his cool, and he'll get hit or punched or something, and he'll punch the lady back. Or he'll slap the lady back. And what's she do right away? Starts crying and goes, he hit me, he assaulted me, help, he assaulted me. That's what they do. The whole anti-bullying campaign, it didn't end bullying. It just shifted who the bullies are. That's all. People that will use intimidation, physical violence, verbal abuse. And then when you respond with any measure of that, they claim to be the victim. That's power. And you see this constantly with these causes on the left. You see it when Black Lives Matter saying, no one will address the issues we're talking. There's no national conversation about race. While literally every institution in the country is talking about race. You can't turn on a sports game without having the conversation about race. And yet still they say, nope, we're the victim. You see it when the Democrats are saying the election was stolen from us. Misinformation in 2016. Misinformation. It's not enough that they control 90% of the narrative. If there's any percent of the narrative they don't control, that's not fair. This is constantly what they do. And you could see this well before even 2016, when you would see like rallies on college campuses. Remember when Milo tried to speak at Berkeley and they decided to beat the shit out of people that were just trying to see Milo Yiannopoulos, pepper spraying them, punching them, assaulting them. And they said the reason was they were the victims. They were in fear because the violent words of Milo endangered them. So they could use physical violence. The physical violence isn't actual violence. Why? Because you're awful. Like that girl said earlier. You're a shitty person. You remember the whole can you punch a Nazi conversation? Where you had all these people saying, of course you can punch a Nazi. That's part of where this stems from. If you say that the person is awful that you're attacking, you could justify anything. You could burn down precincts. You could physically assault people. You could destroy their property. You could loot their homes. You could punch them. You could push them. You could spit on them. And if they retaliate in kind in any of those ways, they're the abuser. That's what's going on here.
He's got a weapon!
And he's still laughing about it, which is funny.
Oh, you want me to drop my weapon?
Yes.
Okay.
Get and leave.
There's my weapon.
We're not trying to have any
I'm not distracting him.
Now look at the arrogance of this lady. Now I remember, does anyone remember when we had a national conversation about the Covington situation? What was the beginning of that conversation? They said it was violence. And why was it violence? Nick Sandman and the Covington kids never touched Nathan Phillips. the Indian guy. They never touched him. The argument was they surrounded him. And by surrounding him and invading his personal space, that itself was violence and intimidation. That's what they said. That was violence and intimidation because they surrounded his space. Yet every time you watch one of these rallies where there's conflicting, 95% of this is actually a rare situation where this is someone that's going to a protest being carried out by sort of the left. Most of the time when there's a conflict, what you see is it's a Trump rally or something like that, or it's a, patriot prayer, and then agitators from the left come and start a confrontation. Very rarely do you see violence occur because there was a left-wing rally and right-wingers showed up. It almost never happens. The left-wing rallies go off without a hitch almost every time. Now, there's, of course, going to be outliers, but most of the time, that's what happens. But what you see occur when there is these two people interacting is all of these people surrounded him. They destroyed his property. She's pushing up against him, forcing him backwards like this. I thought that was violence. I thought invading his personal space and stuff like that was violence. Oh, it's different when you're awful. If you disagree with their ideology, then you can do that. So that's exactly, this lady is one of the biggest agitators because she's intentionally agitating, pushing him. But she's like, it's like if you watch like an NBA game and someone commits a foul and they put their hands up, or NFL, it's even better. Like you'll see someone block someone in the back. What's the first thing they do? They put their hands up like, oh, I didn't touch him with my hands. That's what she's doing. And she thinks because of that superficial gesture and because this guy's awful, that it's okay for her to do this. Again, I'm not saying she should go to prison or anything, but you can see it was the left. It's not my standard. It's the left standard. Surrounding people, invading their personal space. That's violence. That's intimidation. Only when they do it all the time, it's okay. You see? Back up, back up. They're acting like he's aggressing on her. They're the ones putting their hands on him, constantly moving forward, pushing him back. But they have to act like the victim. Back up, back up.
I'm just here to say that jokes are funny, people. Dave Chappelle is a funny guy.
He's absolutely right. Dave Chappelle is funny. I don't know if the new stand-up is funny or not, but in general, Dave Chappelle's a funny guy. He's a great comedian, and jokes are funny. And if your ideology or your whatever demographic you're in can't handle any jokes about you without saying that it's violence and resorting to childish things like this, you have serious problems. So he's right. Now, let's hear what the tambourine lady's saying.
I love Dave. I don't know why all the violence. I don't know why all the hate. I just love Dave.
Repent, motherfucker. Repent. It's a struggle session. It's a religion. It's a cult. That's what it is. Repent. They mean it too. That's not flippant. And that's not an outlier. They might not use those terms all the time, but she's giving the game away. That's what it is. Repent. It's a cult. You must worship the cult. If you say anything against it, the cult will come for you in the form of the mob, and they'll force you to repent. Just like the struggle sessions under communism. That's what it is. Repent. What exactly does he need to repent for? For saying, I think it's okay to joke? I like Dave Chappelle. That's why he needs to repent? And these people, because it's a cult, they actually believe that they're the victims, and they actually believe that they're the moral superior people in this situation. They actually believe it. It's unbelievable. Let's finish it out.
Chappelle! Dave Chappelle! He is a
Look at the thrill that these people get. You can't see a large amount of them because there's so many. That's the other thing. Look at how many journalists are here. Imagine if we had this many journalists, taking pictures and questions about, 10% going to the big guy, or United States citizens stranded in Afghanistan, or at the border, Or checking out the kids in cages that's 4 times worse under Joe Biden. Imagine that. Thanks so much for the gifted sub, Scooby. I really appreciate it. Imagine if we had that. These are the same reporters that are there. Oh my God, there's a news story happening. There's a news story. Dave Chappelle thing. They're the same people that if they weren't there, they'd be asking Joe Biden about his favorite flavor of ice cream while they took pictures. There's more journalists there than people protesting, it looks like. This is manufactured. My wife says, I just watched Celebrity Wife Swap with Rowdy Roddy Piper and Ric Flair, I assume. She was left wanting more. Of course you were. I have a great wife. All right, let's finish this out.
They took my stick! They took my stick! My stick!
And he's obviously being sarcastic, which is actually funny. He's acting like, oh my God, my stick. Because he has a sense of humor. And good for him. By the way, Dave Chappelle should give this guy free tickets to his next show. But what I was starting to say before I said about all the journalists, do you see how gleeful it is? They love this shit. I talk about the idea, I read it somewhere, about the idea of chasing dragons. They literally think they're fighting literal Nazis. They get a rush out of it. We did something today. We fought the evil people. You bullied a guy who said he liked Dave Chappelle. You made an ass of yourself. And they think they achieved some great victory. And if they don't get what they want, they'll claim that they're super oppressed, horrible victims, which gives them more power. His sarcasm is staged. I don't think that their interactions with him staged. He's mocking the situation, though. As he should.
They took it! My side, I need my poster board. It was $2.99. It was my mom.
I need my poster board. It was $2.99. That's funny. I actually think that's funny.